Oh no, the cop sprayed me. There isn't a week that goes by where a video gets posted on some website showing an officer using pepper spray on an individual. Many times you only see a portion of the encounter between the officer and the suspect, and one wonders whether the cop had the right to pepper spray the person, or is it an example of excessive force? This is David for tacticsandtrials.com for 10 on Tactics. Today we will look at cases involving pepper spray and the use of force by the officer. So, what exactly is pepper spray? Sometimes it is called oleoresin capsicum, or OC, or pepper spray. It is the same chemical irritant used by police officers worldwide when there is a force encounter and a suspect is being detained or arrested. OC is a natural extract of capsaicinoids found in hot peppers. The active ingredients are capsaicin and related capsaicinoids. The capsaicinoids bind to certain sensory receptors, the same receptors that detect heat and pain, causing intense burning pain, tearing, inflammation of mucous membranes, coughing, and involuntary eyelid closure. OC products are commonly described by the percentage of OC, the active ingredient percentage, by weight of the container or by the Scoville heat units, which is a measure of pepper heat. Law enforcement grade sprays often contain anywhere from about 0.18% to several percent of capsaicinoids depending on the formulation. How is the spray made? Certain types of capsicum pepper varieties are cultivated or procured. The capsaicinoids are extracted from dried pepper material using a solvent or mechanical extraction. Solvents used historically include ethanol, hexane, or other food-grade solvents. The result is an oleoresin concentrate rich in capsaicinoids. The concentrate is standardized to a target capsaicinoid content. This allows consistent potency across batches. The standardized OC concentrate is combined with carrier agents, surfactants, and emulsifiers, and propellants for aerosol cans. Typical carriers include water with an emulsifier, alcohols, or other solvents. Some law enforcement formulations include UV dye markers to identify sprayed persons later. Common delivery mechanisms for OC are 1. Aerosol spray canisters produce stream, cone, or fog patterns. Range of these sprays varies, with handheld canisters is often 4 to 10 feet. 2. Foam or gel projectiles, and is used to reduce blowback of material while indoors and limits the spread of the compound. 3. Pump sprays, which have shorter ranges and lower volumes. 4. Canisters launched from launchers that are used for crowd control scenarios. Overall, what are the effects of OC spray? In acute reactions, a person can have intense ocular pain, conjunctivitis, lacrimation, tearing, involuntary eye closure, blepharospasm, coughing, shortness of breath, nasal discharge, localized skin burning, and irritation. The spray effect typically peaks in minutes and often resolves over 15 to 60 minutes with decontamination. Some symptoms can last longer depending on exposure, concentration, and individual sensitivity or pre-existing conditions. As for a proper medical response to a person exposed to OC spray, the officer should remove the person from exposure, flush their eyes and skin with copious water, avoid oils, remove contaminated clothing, and provide fresh air. To be safe, professional medical attention should be sought. In some cases, inhalation can exacerbate pre-existing asthma conditions and cause severe respiratory distress. So how do the courts review pepper spray used by police officers? Primarily, the courts start their analysis with Graham v. Connor, 490 U.S. 386, 1989. An allegation of excessive force by a police officer is analyzed under the Fourth Amendment. Was the level of force used by the officer objectively reasonable considering? 1. The court balances the facts based on the totality of the circumstances when the force was used in a situation that was tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving. 2. The severity of the crime being committed and whether the suspect was actively resisting and evading. 3. What was the level of threat to the officer and the public? 4. Did the officers attempt to use alternative methods to gain control of the suspect? 5. What was the degree of injury to the suspect and the location of those injuries on the suspect's body? 6. And as to qualified immunity, was the officer on notice about this application of force in these conditions, and was it clearly established law? In some federal circuits, the court will also inquire as to whether the force was necessary. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals will apply the Graham factors and will also inquire about the suspect's mental condition. Aside from federal legal remedies under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 for violation of an individual's Fourth Amendment rights, A person may also pursue state law claims such as battery and negligence. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled on the use of pepper spray in certain notable cases. In 2011, the court issued its opinion in Young v. County of Los Angeles, 655 F3D 1156. Mr. Young was stopped by a lone motor officer for a seatbelt and license plate violation. When asked to produce his driver's license, he failed to do so. The officer asked that he stay in his car during the traffic stop due to officer safety issues. Mr. Young exited his vehicle and then sat out of sight of the deputy during the stop. Mr. Young, who was a probation officer at the time, was aware of the safety concerns of the deputy during the stop but disregarded the deputy's order to stay in the car. After Young exited his vehicle and refused to re-enter it, the deputy approached him from behind while Young sat on a curb and pepper sprayed him without issuing a verbal warning. Young attempted to back away from the spray and he began to yell at the deputy so loudly that food particles from Young's mouth ended up on the deputy's uniform. As Young began to posture up on the deputy continued to spray Young. After the OC spray appeared to have no effect upon Young, the deputy drew his baton and struck Young several times and ordered him to get on the ground. Young refused. After a second deputy arrived, they were finally able to get Young handcuffed. Young alleged that while he was on the ground, he was struck by a baton again. Plaintiff Mark Anthony Young filed suit under 42 U.S.C. Paragraph 1983 against the deputy and the County of Los Angeles, claiming excessive force, false imprisonment, and negligence based on a traffic stop in which the deputy used pepper spray and struck Young with a baton. The district court granted summary judgment in favor of the defendants on all claims. Young appealed to the Court of Appeals. Judge Reinhardt, the author of the opinion, concluded that Young was merely pulled over for a seatbelt violation and nothing else. The court held that after Young exited his vehicle and refused to re-enter it, the deputy approached Young from behind while he sat on a curb eating a tomato and broccoli. The deputy then pepper sprayed the passively and non-threatening Young without any apparent warning. The deputy continued to spray the passively resisting Young and also struck him with his baton. The second deputy also struck Young with a baton while he was on the ground. The issues addressed by the court were 1. Whether the use of pepper spray and baton blows under these facts constituted excessive force in violation of the Fourth Amendment. 2. Whether the deputy was entitled to qualified immunity from Young's claims under the circumstances. And 3. Whether the false imprisonment and negligence claims were properly dismissed. The court held that Graham v. Connor governs excessive force claims under the Fourth Amendment using an objective reasonableness standard. Accordingly, the court classified pepper spray and baton blows as intermediate force. According to Judge Reinhardt, the force was more than de minimis and less than deadly force because this type of force can inflict significant pain or injury and entails a significant intrusion on liberty. As stated by the judge, both pepper spray and baton blows are forms of force capable of inflicting significant pain and causing serious injury. As such, both are regarded as intermediate force. This was a new legal creation of the court. Thus, the facts as alleged by Young, pepper sprayed while seated and baton strikes while restrained, permitted an inference of excessive force was used by the deputies. The court's reasoning was that the traffic violation was minor, seatbelt, and Young never posed a threat to the deputies. In addition, he did not attempt to flee or resist violently. The record did not support that the deputy was reasonably in fear or that Young was aggressive to the deputy. Surprisingly, this was not argued on the appeal by the deputy's attorney. The court also held that less intrusive alternatives were available, but that the deputy chose a more severe response by using pepper spray and the baton. The court also denied the deputy qualified immunity. The Ninth Circuit reversed summary judgment with respect to Young's excessive force and negligence claims and remanded for further proceedings. From this decision, the Ninth Circuit clearly warned officers that even in traffic stops, they must be cautious when dealing with nonviolent and passive non-compliant suspects. This behavior does not justify intermediate force such as pepper spray or baton blows. The officer's use of force must be proportional, with de-escalation and lesser means considered. In addition, officers should provide warnings if feasible. Prior to Young, in 2000, the Ninth Circuit addressed the use of pepper spray during a protest in Headwaters Forest Defense v. County of Humboldt, 276 F3D 1125. In Headwaters, protesters used black bear lockdown devices to link themselves physically around trees that were on private property. The devices made it difficult to remove the protesters who were stopping the company from conducting operations. The protesters had been conducting a number of protests in the area and had been warned about the potential use of pepper spray by the deputies so that the protesters would release their grips on the lockdown devices. Prior to using pepper spray, the sheriff sought guidance from county council on the use of pepper spray and was given guidance on when and how to apply the pepper. In some of the encounters with protesters, deputies used Q-tips dipped in a pepper water solution and then applied it to the edges of closed eyelids. In other instances, deputies sprayed bursts of pepper directly into some protesters' faces at very short range. In some instances, it was alleged that deputies threatened to withhold water and in at least some cases withheld eye flushing or relief for over 20 minutes while the protesters continued to hold the lockdown device. The court found that the protesters were nonviolent and did not physically threaten or resist in a violent way. The issues presented to the Court of Appeals were: 1. Whether the use of pepper spray under these factual settings constituted excessive force under a Fourth Amendment analysis. 2. Whether withholding relief, water wash for affected areas on the body of the protesters was a Fourth Amendment violation. And 3. Whether the deputies were entitled to qualified immunity. Overall, the court held that Graham v. Connor objective reasonableness analysis applied to the application of the pepper spray. Moreover, the court held that non-lethal force such as pepper spray can be a significant intrusion and not just a de minimis application of force. As for not providing aftercare for the pepper spray application, the court looked to its previous decision in Lalonde v. County of Riverside, where the court held that once control over the suspect was achieved, further use of force or refusal to ease pain, withholding the water wash to the affected areas, may itself be excessive force. The court recognized that OC spray causes intense pain, involuntary eye closure, gagging reflex, and temporary impairment of breathing, and thus it was more than minimal intrusive force. The manner and degree of use, the repeated full sprays directly into the face of the protester at close range, allowed a reasonable inference of excessive force by the deputy. As the court stated, pepper spray is regarded as an intermediate force that presents a significant intrusion upon an individual's liberty interests. The sheriff's department argued that this force was necessary in order to remove the trespassing protesters. However, the court found that the protesters were nonviolent and presented no threat to the deputies or to the public. The unusual and aggressive nature of the pepper sprays was excessive force. The court also held that the deputies could have used electric high-speed grinders to cut open the locking devices and remove the protesters afterwards. According to the court, this was an alternative and less intrusive way to remove the protesters. In addition, the refusal or delay to provide water or eye wash constitutes additional harm and aggravates the force used. The court invoked Lalonde's principle that once control of the suspect is achieved, continuation of force or failure to alleviate pain is unreasonable. The Ninth Circuit affirmed that some individual defendants were not entitled to qualified immunity, and the case was remanded for further proceedings. From Headwaters, some of the key issues learned from that opinion was that OC spray must be carefully controlled, and that OC sprays to the face at close range could be considered excessive force in some encounters. Also, officers must consider that withholding or delaying relief, water, and washing affected areas may itself violate rights of an individual. Accordingly, police training must emphasize warnings, if feasible, should be given before any OC spray is applied. Before spraying, the officer should ensure there is proper distance between the canister and the suspect, and there are limited bursts. Many times, the court will closely scrutinize uses of pepper spray on nonviolent subjects, non-threatening and unarmed, especially when less severe alternatives exist to control the suspect. Some common themes from all federal circuits regarding the use of pepper spray on a suspect are: 1. The officer should attempt de-escalation techniques before the use of pepper spray. This could be verbal commands, warnings, or less intrusive measures if feasible. 2. The court will analyze the proportionality of the use of force, pepper spray, versus the conduct of the suspect. In addition, it will also evaluate the necessity of the force application and whether the suspect posed an immediate threat. 3. The officer should complete the appropriate documentation regarding the force application, describing the encounter in detail. In addition, all videos and evidence supporting the application of force must be secured and safeguarded with the documentation. Included in this packet would also be any supervisory review of the force encounter. 4. After any force application, the officer must render any medical care if needed and in a prompt fashion. 5. It is essential that all officers receive proper training regarding the use of pepper spray, such as delivery distance for the spray, knowledge about pepper spray patterns, and aftercare measures for individuals impacted by the pepper spray. 6. From a tactical perspective, avoid using pepper spray in confined spaces like the interior of a car or a small room, since it may affect other individuals not involved in the force encounter with the officer. This is David for tacticsandtrials.com. Until next time, be safe.